For 33 days and counting, Russia has been raining hell on Ukraine. President Zelensky of Ukraine has been asking for just one thing from the West: more weapons to counter the Russian assault. Well, we're now hearing that apart from everything else that the West has been sending to Ukraine, a super weapon, a game-changing piece of military hardware is headed into Ukrainian hands, which could turn the tide of a war that is being fought from the air. Will this ground Putin's air force is the question. Take a look at this primetime exclusive. Over 33 days, Russian aircraft have been raining hell on Ukraine. But Russian aircraft have also been facing hell in the country, with large numbers of fighters and helicopters brought down by bruised but determined Ukrainian air defense units. Since the beginning of the war, Ukraine has been awash with lethal Stinger shoulder-fired anti-aircraft missiles, a weapon that has imposed a huge cost on Russia's air power superiority and will to dominate. But now, after over a month of constant bombardment, with its cities reeling from a second wave of Putin's aerial strikes, a new weapon is flowing into Ukraine. One that will give it even more teeth against Putin's air force. Days after the NATO summit in Brussels, the Boris Johnson government in the United Kingdom has decided to supply Ukraine with Starstreak, the fastest short-range air defense missile system in existence. The man-portable shoulder-fired Starstreak system fires missiles that accelerate to up to 4 times the speed of sound, blindingly zooming into their targets. The weapon then launches 3 laser beam-riding sub-munitions, increasing the likelihood of a successful hit on their target. The Starstreak has a number of advantages over the Stinger and Igla systems currently being used by Ukrainian air defense troops. Most notably, the Starstreak cannot be jammed by infrared or radar countermeasures. Britain's air defense commander has declared that Russian pilots will think twice about getting into their planes after British soldiers have trained their Ukrainian counterparts to fire Starstreak. With this latest NATO weapon entering a high-tech battlefield, will this give Putin's air power impulses reason to stay grounded? Or has Putin already war-gamed Ukraine's new defenses? Watch this space to find out what happens next. Bureau Report, India Today. And on this brand new development, I want to go across to India Today's Gaurav Sawant, who's been reporting from inside Ukraine. He was reporting just a short while earlier from Poland, which is a NATO neighbor of Ukraine's, from where several consignments of modern weaponry have been flowing into the war-torn country. Gaurav, we're hearing now, just days after that NATO summit that took place in Brussels a few days ago, Gaurav, now we're hearing that the United Kingdom under Boris Johnson has released consignments of the Starstreak air defense weapon for Ukraine. After the Stinger, now it's going to be the Starstreak, reputed to be one of the most formidable air defense anti-air weapons. It's the fastest such missile in operation anywhere. Could be a very big addition to the air defense forces of Ukraine, Gaurav.
Shiv, you're spot on. In fact, Ukrainian forces have been for long demanding either the declaration of a no-fly zone. In fact, where we are, you can see a number of signboards. Every signboard here in Ukraine talks about declaration of either a no-fly zone over Ukraine's skies or air defense systems, whether it's the S-300, because they know that is the best that they know how to operate, or the NATO systems. Shiv, but there is another point here.
Yes.
Who will operate the systems as of now? The soldiers would require, and these are very complex systems, they will take time to learn to operate. And if I may, we've just been interacting with some American and some British combat veterans who are here right now in Ukraine training and, imparting their knowledge to the Ukrainian forces.
Yeah.
Air defense systems, small arms systems, anti-tank guided missiles, surface-to-air missiles. A lot of these systems is where Ukraine is getting upgradation in terms of the weapons and systems that they have, and they're operating in time before they get that training. Shiv, there are combat veterans who are operating these systems for them. And that is why this explains the targeting of the Lviv route by Russia, because that's the route from which these complex weapons and systems are flowing into this country. And of course, combat veterans from some of these countries are coming here. Now, what also, there are two things that Ukraine desperately requires at this point of time. Fighter jets and surface-to-air missiles, and air defense shield. Both that can keep Russians at bay. Just today, Ukraine has claimed that they've shot down another Su-34 fighter bomber of Russia. Now, whether they've actually done that or these are old pictures, we do not know. But it's a claim made by Ukraine's Ministry of Defense. And if they're shooting down complex fighter jets and modern state-of-the-art fighter bombers, it's an indication, one, even a month into this combat, Russia hasn't been able to take out all the air defense systems. Two, there are other air defense systems that are flowing into this country, Shiv.
Very, very interesting. So, if not a no-fly zone, which seems highly unlikely, the NATO has said that's going to be, interpreted as an act of war. It's something that the NATO can't comply with. But supplying the most advanced air defense weaponry to Ukraine appears to be very much on the table. Rajesh Pawar is a Special Forces veteran. He's very familiar with weapons of this kind. He's also been reporting from Kyiv. Rajesh, the NATO stepping up once again with advanced weapons. We've seen the Javelins, we've seen the Stinger missiles, Rajesh, and now the Star Streak appears to be, according to some reports, has been cleared for delivery by the British government, to the Ukrainians. It's going to be yet another addition to the Ukrainian arsenal. And like Gaurav said, there will be trainers on the ground to actually assist the Ukrainian armed forces in the use of these weapons. How do you see this, Rajesh?
Look, Shiv, it's a very complicated question in two regards. First, how this latest equipment, which is huge, how will it be shipped inside Ukraine? It will be very difficult. Secondly, the operation part of it. Look, the Americans, I have interacted with many of them, Americans, British, Swedes, who are coming here. They're not the kind of specialists which Ukraine needs, and they will not be allowed to handle that kind of sophisticated and expensive equipment. They are basically people with very low ranks who can just fight on probably with the rifles and all. They're not specialists as such. And if they operate systems like Battered, it will be direct involvement of a country in this war. This is how Russia will take it. This is how anybody who is watching this war will take it. So I don't think they will be shipped inside and the veterans from these countries will be operating the system. That's not possible, because that will be direct violation of what has been set forth so far, till now by Russia. That will be like these countries participating in the war. Because any veteran, any serving personnel can go in the garb of veteran in Ukraine and can start operating these weapons. So that's what's going to happen. And the critical thing is how they'll be shipped in. And what have been cleared so far, what I know, what have been sent to Ukraine so far are not so advanced. S-300 also has not been cleared so far for coming into Ukraine, which Ukrainians can handle. It's just like MiG-29, which Ukrainians can very well handle, but will not be given to them. And that's the final full stop America has put on that.
So this is a very important reality check that both Gaurav and Rajesh are giving us, that, it's one thing to actually clear these advanced weapons like the Star Streak for Ukraine. It's another thing to first deliver it and then to actually train and work up the Ukrainian armed forces, to effectively use these in combat. Gaurav, the supply lines coming in from those NATO countries have happened in stops and starts, weaponry from Germany, weaponry from, via those supply lines in Poland. Are there, how closely is Russia looking at these supply lines? Are these supply lines also vulnerable to Russian attack, Gaurav?
Every part of Ukraine at this point of time, every city, every village, every road, every track is in the line of Russian fire. And this is something that was told to us by the governor of the Kyiv military region. Not one, no part of Kyiv or no part of Ukraine is safe from Russian systems. Their satellites watch everything. Their missiles, target everything. And that's something that's happening on ground even as we speak, Shiv. At this point of time. That's point one. Point two, has that route been targeted? That's also the route for humanitarian evacuation, and that is why those routes haven't been directly targeted, but signals have been sent out. Ivano-Franko has been targeted, Lviv has been targeted, a military training facility that the Russians claimed was training foreign fighters and mercenaries. Now that training facility was targeted, a fuel dump where fuel was coming in. Remember, there's an acute shortage of diesel, and countries like Poland, Canada, they're providing diesel, they're making up for the deficit of fuel. Those supply chains have been targeted, but not the road from where humanitarian assistance is also coming into this country. But the moment there is perhaps confirmation that a train or road is bringing in military hardware, that the Russians would consider that fair game, Shiv.
Very interesting. Rajesh, one last question to you on this new air defense system that's come in. And, I really appreciate the reality check we get from you reporters on the ground, because that allows us to sift some of the information from the misinformation that might be coming in. But, there have been such extravagant claims of losses on both sides, Rajesh. The Ukrainians, for instance, have claimed to have shot down over 120 Russian aircraft and helicopters. They've caused a lot of damage to their air power. Is that really the case? And how does that fit in with this need for more and more advanced anti-air weaponry? How do you see that, Rajesh?
Look, Shiv, I'll give you two facts which will clarify a lot of things.
Yeah.
I don't have to say yes or no to a question, but see, on the very first day of the war, the day war started, every air defense system was neutralized. We have not seen Ukrainian Air Force in the skies.
Yeah.
Gaurav was with me, and you have other reporters coming here. I asked them, have they seen an aircraft in the skies? We have not seen it so far. Be it Mariupol, be it Zaporozhye, be it Dnipro, be it Kyiv. We have not seen Ukrainian aircrafts flying in the skies here. So in the very first day, most of the air defense systems, air anti-aircraft systems, and the Air Force was neutralized on the very first of the war itself. That speaks about the capability they have of shooting down 123 aircrafts, which they are claiming doesn't seem to be true. Yeah. Secondly, with regards to this aircraft, which is reportedly shot down today morning, the Russians are claiming it was a Ukrainian aircraft. So there are claims and counterclaims on both sides. But as far as anti-aircraft capabilities of Ukraine or anti-missile capability are concerned, it is really, really very low. And that is the reason Zelensky is going on his knees asking for closing the skies over Ukraine and asking for modern anti-aircraft system, because without this, they cannot sustain this war for too long, and this will keep dragging on, and more soldiers will keep dying in this war. Shiv.
Very, very, very true. Rajesh and Gaurav, appreciate it. Please stay safe. We'll keep coming back to you. Eyes and ears right there on the ground. The only reporters reporting factually and from the actual war zone in Ukraine are Gaurav and Rajesh. Thanks very much for being with us. We've got our reporters on the ground who've also been adding to what's happening in there, and we value that very much because our reports are first-hand reports. We're not depending on the versions of agencies or anyone else. 33 days ago, the port city of Mariupol that Yevgenia, you were talking about, was bustling. It was a beautiful city. Today, it's literally full of corpses. There are cemeteries on the roads. A thriving city has been turned virtually entirely into dust. There's not a single building standing completely that's been left untouched by Russian shelling and missile attacks. Mariupol is now on the verge of complete doom. Take a look at what it looked like earlier and what it looks like now.
Over 3,000 killed. Thousands forcibly taken to Russia as prisoners. Many, many more injured. No building standing without damage. This is the horrifying story of Mariupol. The Ukrainian city of 5.5 lakh, now in absolute ruins. The destruction is near total. Bombarded, hit with missiles, struck with massive airstrikes relentlessly. The sprawling port city of Mariupol has been wasted by Russian heavy artillery fire. Its once plush and picturesque neighborhoods now unrecognizable and reduced to ghost towns. Many streets are seen littered with unclaimed corpses and civilians killed in airstrikes. Ukraine has also accused Moscow of forcibly moving out over 40,000 citizens from Mariupol to Russia without consent from Ukrainian government. The port city, lying in direct line of Russian fire and invasion, has seen toddlers and newborns dying in Russian attacks. Hundreds had perished earlier when Russia bombed a theatre where civilians had taken shelter. Russia has been accused of using super powerful bombs after trapping nearly 2 lakh people and denying them safe passage. France has also raised concerns over the humanitarian catastrophe in Mariupol and called for urgent international intervention. French Foreign Minister called Mariupol the new Aleppo, drawing parallels with the total destruction of the Syrian city.
Mariupol, c'est la guerre des sièges, dans laquelle
Mariupol is a siege war that Russia has been entering for a month now. And siege warfare is horrible warfare since civilian populations are being massacred and annihilated.
Ukrainian President Zelensky slammed Russian forces for targeting civilians, including bombing a school sheltering women and children.
Destroyed schools, churches, houses. All the people are killed, and all the children are killed. The air bomb on the maternity hospital is the final proof that the genocide of the Ukrainians is taking place.
Half of Mariupol's population is still trapped, becoming victims of President Putin's war game. And time is running out for Mariupol real fast. Bureau Report, India Today.
Everyone's asking practically every day, will there be a big escalation in the days to come? Ukraine's armed forces say that Russian troops are attempting to advance into Kyiv. We've heard that before. It's been happening for weeks together, but they haven't actually entered the city. The Russians have also said, we don't even want Kyiv. We don't want Kharkiv. We're just hitting these cities from the outside to distract the Ukrainians. Our actual attention is in the eastern part of the country, which, remember, Russia already dominates. So is there a plan to capture the metropolitan capital of Ukraine or not? We try and answer that here.
The raging battle for capital city Kyiv continues. And Moscow is increasing both intensity of attacks and ferocity of weaponry, aiming to make the phase 2 of the ongoing war even deadlier. Russian troops are attempting to advance on Kyiv from the northwest and the east, capturing nearby roads and villages. But Ukraine is not backing down. Russian forces are currently being held back by Ukrainian fightback in outskirts of Kyiv.
Early this morning, there was intense shelling reported from the north, northeast and west, 3 directions in Kiev, and that is where the Russian forces are reportedly advancing. So initially there was a feeling that there would be a lull since negotiations are happening, but there appears to be an intensification in the operations that are being carried out by the Russians.
Villages surrounding Kyiv, including Bashiv, Stoyanka and Sitnyaki, are in ruins. Their infrastructure damaged, buildings destroyed and streets deserted.
The workers are still working and they're making sure that in case of any heavy bombardment in this area in Sofia Square, this statue, which is an ancient statue, is a heritage of the city, is protected and is not damaged in any kind of air attacks from the Russian forces.
Destroyed tanks, armored vehicles dot the landscape, indicating a massive trail of destruction. India Today met a group of US war veterans who have arrived in Kyiv to help Ukraine fight back.
So, Marshall, incidentally, is a combat veteran. He's had extensive tours of duty overseas with the U.S. Armed Forces. John, you're helping as a volunteer. What do you do?
So I'm actually bringing donations from Canada. I'll be volunteering at the Medika border crossing, just helping refugees. I passed through there a couple days ago. They definitely need all the assistance that they can get, 100%.
Despite continued attacks from Kyiv, some residents of Kyiv who fled the capital city are slowly returning home. Local churches becoming rallying points for residents. With Gaurav Sawant and Rajesh Pawar in Kyiv war zone, Bureau Report, India Today.
So that's our report from Kyiv. Remember, the Russians have said they've been attacking Kyiv and other cities to distract and tie down the Ukrainian armed forces in order to allow the Russians to focus their attention on the east, which is their real military objective. That's what the Russians say. You don't have to believe them, but that's what they say. India Today is the only channel reporting from the eastern part of Ukraine as well, bringing you both sides of the war. We're also on the Russian side. Geeta Mohan is our foreign affairs editor. She's traveled from Moscow to the border areas of Ukraine and then crossed into Donetsk, where she currently is the only Indian reporter, and she sent us this.
We are right here in the Donetsk city, and we can hear sounds of explosion. There you hear it, sounds of explosion that's taking place not so far away from here, but in the outskirts. In some time from now, we will be reporting from there, but certainly a worry for people, most of them inside. If you see the city, if Satya can show you, hardly any people around, no people, and the fact that there are massive explosions here. President Putin had said that the military operations over here will intensify, and from the day we arrived here, we certainly hear more sounds of explosion. With British journalist Satya Rautre in Donetsk, Geeta Mohan for India Today. We are here in the heart of Donetsk city. This is the Artima street, and you can see all the malls, the major restaurants, clubs, all of these places have been shut down. They're shut because of the situation on the ground. Only a few bare minimum grocery stores, some of the shopping centers are open. All the rest are absolutely shut with no products to sell. No people over here actually to come and buy the products. With the journalist Satya Rautre in Donetsk, Geeta Mohan for India Today.
And two fearless reporters who've been reporting from two different parts of the country. Geeta Mohan, our foreign affairs editor, who just sent us this report, is in the city of Donetsk in the eastern part of Ukraine, and Maria Pysarenko has been reporting from Ukraine's capital of Kyiv. Both of them joined me live just now. Geeta, to you first. You're reporting just a couple of days after the Russian government and Ministry of Defense said that their attacks on the other parts of Ukraine, Kyiv and Kharkiv and the rest of it, have all just been a distraction. Their basic focus and military objective are the places where you are reporting from right now. Is that really the case? What are you sensing on the ground?
Well, absolutely. That is certainly the sense that I get from the ground over here, Shiv. The eastern part of Ukraine, the Donbas region, is certainly the focus point for the Russian administration, not just to take control, but also to ensure what they're saying, independence of the two areas of Donetsk and Luhansk. Demands of the Russian side in the negotiations have become harsher and harder. They are looking at Ukraine, one, recognizing Crimea as part of Russia and recognizing Donetsk and Luhansk as independent republics. It is going to be a difficult negotiation that is going to begin in Turkey, Shiv. And even as we say that, outside of Donetsk, the fight is fierce in Marinka and in Mariupol, cities that we've already shown visuals of, absolutely devastated, huge loss of life and huge loss of and damage to property. So it continues, and we continue to hear explosions through and through. So there is massive gun battle on, whether it's shelling or man-to-man combat, which is gun battle in certain parts.
And we heard the explosions in that report that you sent us. So please stay safe, Geeta. We'll keep coming back to you. Stay with me for the moment if you're able to. Maria is with us live from Kyiv. Maria, you heard what the Russian government had said, that they don't plan to take Kyiv. They had no intention of taking Kyiv, but the attacks on the city are still very much happening. What are you seeing around you in the capital?
Right. So today, for example, we woke up to the news that at night a Russian missile, which was hit by Ukrainian air defense system, fell onto yet again one more situation of such circumstances. The missile fell onto the residential building, and we have seen again the devastation, the destruction, the debris of residential house lying all around. So again and again, Russians continue their tactics of striking missiles at residential areas. And if they say that they do not have any plan of taking Kyiv and attacking Kyiv, then the question arises why they target missiles at residential quarters of Kyiv. So this is what we see. Of course, I should point out that several recent days were pretty peaceful in Kyiv. Kyiv is trying to get back to normal life economically, so some businesses are trying to get back to work. But of course, we can't say that the all life, returns to living as normal, because we still have Russians in our country and around our capital city. And the latest news are really, good news for Ukrainian army, for the Ukrainians, that Irpin, the city to the north of Kyiv, has been liberated from Russians. We have seen the report that 30% of city during the previous days was under control of Russians. So they were here and there on the outskirts also of Irpin, but 70% were under control of Ukrainian army. And just hours ago, the mayor of city, Mr. Markushin, announced that Irpin is now free of Russians. So heavy battles had happened there, and now the city is under full control of Ukrainian army. And we see that the our forces, the Ukrainian army forces, are successful in getting back, in regaining control of these suburban areas of Kyiv to the north. So we see that Russian plan of encirclement of city is also, again, not true. And what is surprising, and at the same time not surprising, that Russians do try to switch their rhetoric and saying that, oh, we do not plan even to take Kyiv. Oh, we do not plan to do so and so, just because they see that they are not successful in their tactics. And right now they're trying, to show their influence at least somewhere. So, of course, here's the expectations of the military experts, of people I spoke to here in Kyiv who monitor the situation. They say that it looks like Russians will try to focus their forces in the southern parts of Ukraine. So from Crimea, it is easy for them to draw more troops to Kherson, to Mykolaiv. Right now, Kherson is under control of Russians, unfortunately. So they will try to keep the control there. And of course, they will have to move away from Kyiv, because the fight back of the Ukrainian army is now very strong and they can't handle it, despite the expectations of Russians to be very successful in this direction.
I certainly hope. I was happy to hear you say that the last few days were a little normal in Kyiv, and I hope that prevails. Nobody wants this to become a worse situation, no matter which way we look at it. I hope that things calm down in Kyiv. I hope that things calm down in Donetsk. I hope there's a diplomatic situation. But I think all three of us can agree, Geeta and Maria, that it doesn't look like that's going to happen anytime soon. We'll have to see where it goes. Please stay safe. We'll keep coming back to you. Thank you for getting us that first-hand view from the ground in Ukraine. Now, the current president of the United States of America, you know who I'm talking about, is known to shoot his mouth off at times which are pretty inappropriate. And on the matter of the Ukraine war and its perpetrator, Vladimir Putin, Joe Biden has been saying things that his staff have been scrambling to firefight and do damage control for. From war criminal to regime change, Biden has said it all. Apparently, ad-libbed. He improvised in a scripted speech as he strayed from this carefully drafted speech The diplomatic fallout of such comments is naturally serious because when a US president says something like, "I want to change the Russian government" in a public speech, it can rarely be taken back. And believe me, this is Cold War 2.0. That is the current atmosphere.
It was Saturday in Ukraine when the bombs began falling on Lviv to the west of the country. The city had seen relative calm over the month of war, but the strikes at a fuel depot sent smoke and flames billowing into the air. At about the same time, around 400 kilometers further west, President Joe Biden of USA was meeting Ukrainian refugees at the National Stadium of Poland in Warsaw. When reporters asked him what he thought of President Putin of Russia, the US president said he's a butcher.
You see this and you're dealing every day with Vladimir Putin. I mean, look at what he's done to these people. What does it make you think? He's a butcher.
If Putin was sending a message to Biden by bombing Western Ukraine because the US president was in neighboring Poland, then Biden too had a message for Putin later that evening.
Over the last 30 years, the forces of autocracy.
It was a much-awaited speech from one who is called the leader of the free world. At the end of his 3-day visit to Europe, in the backdrop of the raging war to his east, President Joe Biden's words would in effect indicate the direction Western strategy would take in the days to come. For 27 minutes, the President of the United States spoke, showing full support for Ukraine and drawing out the parameters of Western response to Russian action. And then suddenly, 27 minutes later, at the very end of his speech, he dropped an ad-libbed bombshell.
Russia's choice. We will have a different future, a brighter future, rooted in democracy and principle, hope and light, of decency and dignity, of freedom and possibilities. For God's sake, this man cannot remain in power. God bless you all, and may God defend our freedom.
Those 9 ad-libbed words, "For God's sake, this man cannot remain in power," set off alarm bells all over the diplomatic world. It had US officials scrambling to damage control, and Secretary of State Antony Blinken clarified that regime change in Russia was not on US agenda.
Made the point last night that
But this was typical Joe Biden. He had often been accused of letting his mouth run away from prudence. During his 2008 campaign for presidential nomination, Biden had described another contender as the first mainstream African American who is articulate and bright and clean and a nice-looking guy. That contender was Barack Obama, whose running mate he later became and stayed vice president during the Obama presidency. On Ukraine, as president of the United States, Joe Biden had been building up to getting his words get the better of US policy.
I think he is a war criminal.
Will you be meeting with him?
In the matter of a week, Biden had not only called Putin a war criminal, he also referred to him as a murderous dictator, a pure thug who is waging an immoral war against the people of Ukraine. He said the Russian invasion of Ukraine was inhuman. Some of what Joe Biden sometimes says is considered nothing more important than a gaffe. Like when he said Iranian instead of Ukrainian during his State of the Union address on 1st of March.
Putin may circle Kyiv with tanks, but he'll never gain the hearts and souls of the Iranian people.
But there are times when the seasoned politician that he is, his verbal slip-ups may actually be pointing to how things really are. But then, as the President of the United States, he knows the weight his words carry. During his presidential campaign, Joe Biden often told his audience how the words of a president can matter when they can send men and women to war and how they can also bring peace.